Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. In this episode of Grounded by the Farm, we're going to be talking about Canada, canola, and really getting down to the slippery oils that is canola oil. So I couldn't think of anybody else I should talk to but my dear friend Lesley Kelly, and her name of her blog is High Hills and Canola Fields. Yes. So she is like so inextricably tied to it. Who else could I talk to, right? So let's start with Canadians and canola oil. What is the deal with canola up there?
Yes, we are so proud to grow this crop because it is a crop that is made right here in Canada.
Yeah, so I see it all the time, and I think when Farmer Tom, when we were talking, I think he said he grew some rapeseed oil. And I went, oh yeah. I always make the translation in my head that's like canola, but they're not the same thing exactly.
They aren't the same thing. They come from the same family, and canola is derived from rapeseed. Canola was bred, I believe, in the 60s and 70s by some Canadian scientists because rapeseed has a high, it was uric acid that isn't good for human consumption. So they thought, hey, if we could breed it in a way that produces a healthy oil that can be, sold around the world, and then let's go for it. And now we have over, I think, 20 million acres of canola being grown in Canada, and I think over 40,000 farmers who are producing it as well.
I actually did some research before I got on this, and that oil that you're talking about, that acid in the oil, is something that made it more monosaturated, right? So it made it a really healthier oil by taking that out. There's probably great things about the acid and other things, but in an oil, it presents you with an oil that has fats that we'd prefer to have out of our diet.
Yes, that is exactly right. You can say it better.
And then the other thing that I think is amazing, and I forget this, it's such a huge family, is canola is related to broccoli. And so the other thing they brought out was that bitter flavor that you get with broccoli and kale. There was glucosinolates.
Yeah. I don't know it, but I think that's close. Yeah.
Yeah,
canola is in the cabbage family. So it's so cool when you're watching it grow because it looks like a little cabbage when it, right before it bolts.
But when it bolts, that's it's the stuff that's growing at the closer to the ground, and then it bolts and it gets tall, right? And that's when canola becomes one of the prettiest crops.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the prettiest, because I'm a cotton girl. But tell us what you think of when you think of canola at full bloom.
Oh, I just am so... It's one of those crops where you're in awe because it is so bright and yellow, and it goes for miles. Like when you're flying over Western Canada in that July period and seeing those bright yellow fields, it's breathtaking. It's hard to describe. It's breathtaking.
It really is. I've seen fields of it now and then, and I think occasionally people will see wild mustard, the weed growing. I've seen it in pecan groves or something where it's not causing a problem, so the farmers don't bother to control it. And it's this bright, bright yellow. But canola is bright, and because it gets that height to it, when the wind comes through it, it
looks like yellow oceans. And then if you have a crop right next to it that's flax and the bright purple flowers, and then you have a sunset, that's my heaven in this world.
And flax, for people who don't know, is not only grown for the oils, but it's linen, right?
Yes, that's the straw. So the straw is quite hardy, wiry, and it can be used in a variety of different things. And one of those would be clothing and linen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 100 degrees here today, so we're all cotton and linen in this house.
Nice.
So tell me, how long has your family been growing canola?
Oh, my family first started growing canola in the early 90s, and it was my dad who wanted to do something different on the farm because we were growing wheat and some barley and then summer fallow. So he wanted to put in, canola for a better rotation and also to then direct seed. So it really, canola changed the footprint of our farm from going to 50% production to 100%, and then just better land management too
It
with
makes a
direct
really good
seeding.
rotation with some of the other things you were already doing, right?
hmm Yeah, now on our farm, we have a 4-year rotation between canola, wheat, and then a different type of variety of canola, and then lentils.
I love lentils. We actually had a conversation about lentils last fall with Shauna Favor, and they do some like really cool snacks and stuff. We're going to talk about your snacks later, so let me not get ahead of myself. So, do you cook with canola oil?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my favorite oils to cook with because it's lighter and it has a higher cooking or heating point. So you can use it for sauteing, grilling, deep frying. I use it for salad dressings. I use it for baking. And I buy it by the jug at Costco. So it's just a really good oil to cook with. And I also love to cook with other oils. So it just depends on kind of the flavor you're going with, but it does have this light, hearty flavor that's really, really nice.
I've only used canola for cooking, and and quite frankly, I buy it in the spray things now that I have an air fryer too, right? Because I try not to fry things too
Yeah.
often, but like there's spray canola oil that I just love, and sometimes olive oil. But I always use olive oil for like the salad dressings and stuff. You say you use both. You could use either one.
hmm Yeah, if you're going for like a lighter salad dressing, maybe in the summer, canola oil is a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, nice. I hadn't really thought about it. I had to get, a little bit geeked out because there's so many oilseed plants,
hmm
right? So I'm in the Midwest. We grow a lot of soybeans here. Canada, you grow a lot of canola. Places along the coast, they typically are more like olives if it's a tropical region. And of course, my homeland of the South, cottonseed is an oil.
Cool.
But I had no idea how many differences there were in oil content. Like,
hmm
canola, I mean, it crushes the oil content. Like it's like 40% or more oil out of the seed.
Yeah, it's such a
Whereas that's like twice as much as soybeans
It
get.
is a really amazing plant just as it's growing. It's so hardy. And then this little itty bitty seed it does so much. So yeah, I think at least 40% when it's pressed, or oil is derived when it's pressed. So it's really, really
It,
cool.
it seems to me like occasionally when you're in the field. So I've even been in sesame fields, which I
Oh
think is very
yeah.
strange, sesame seed oil. But with soybeans, sometimes the ones you have, you can press and press and you don't feel as much oil. With canola, it's kind of like when you push that seed or you crack it with your thumbnail, you're going to feel the oil content immediately if it's 45, 50% oil.
Yeah, and one of the most satisfying things that I do at harvest is we test the green count. And so we take like a masking tape and then run it through a roller, and you can feel the crunchiness, but then when you're done rolling, you can feel like that
Yeah.
oily seed after it's been crunched. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. You said your dad decided to bring canola onto the family farm. Who all else is in your family's operation?
Yeah, my mom and my dad, they are retiring. So over the past 5 years, they've slowly been winding down. And then on our farm also includes my husband and my brother and myself as the junior partners.
I love it. So you guys are slowly taking over.
Yeah, we're taking over, and we were really excited because last December, my brother, my husband, and I bought our first farm. We're bringing in the new generation.
I love it. I love it. I think that farm transition, that's something that's really unique to farming and a few other businesses, right? Like I have a few friends who either took over like their family's plumbing business or something, but so many of us follow a really different occupational path in our family
hmm
that we don't necessarily have to work through that transition and how you do those things. I mean, even just working with your spouse or your brother day in and day out, it's probably a pretty different dynamic than my life.
It has different dynamics. So I always think of, what better occupation than to be out in nature and work with the people that I love. But it took a lot of hard work and some, awkward, uncomfortable, direct, and hard conversations because here we were five individuals coming together that had different goals and aspirations of the farm. And it took, years and years of conversations and that hard work and finding our role and getting outside of our comfort zone to really come together and set a new path for the farm.
That sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds really hard,
Yeah,
but it sounds amazing too.
it was really hard, but it's one of those to look back now after 10 years of that transition. I am so proud of how far my family's come.
Very cool. You're really very funny about working with family sometimes too. And I remember a couple of videos you've done. You explain what is your role in the farm versus some of the others. What all do you do versus what maybe your brother, your husband, your dad do?
Yeah, well, my role on the farm, look, I come from a marketing and communications background, so I really didn't think that I wanted to farm or had a day-to-day role on the farm. And so we made this shift, and I left my corporate job and am now full-time on the farm, but I also do lots of things that are outside of the farm too and involved in the industry. In terms of my role on the farm, I'm learning. I'm learning more about the equipment. I'm not the best equipment operator out there, but I'm trying, and my family is super patient with me. But I dive into a lot of the farm strategies, the land strategies, the marketing aspects, and also the human resource component. We created a culture by design on the farm, so I try to bring that to life and help each other through hard times, through communication, ensuring everyone is supported. And that could be, one day it's being the gopher and running to the city and getting parts, or I'm the cook at harvest and trying to bring out a meal so everyone can come together and have a break. Or then, I'm on the phone with some of our marketing people and booking meetings and just trying to make everyone's life on the farm a little bit easier and know that everyone's supported and we're all together on the same path.
I think it's easy to forget that farming is a business that has all those components. A lot of people like to think it's just about being in the tractor or being with animals if you're on livestock. But you do get in the tractor sometimes, and that's where funny stuff happens.
Yeah, I love to be in the tractor because I want to hear what's going on. And the only way, because we live in town, so I am separated. So the only way that I get to have those conversations and learn is by being out there. And a part of our culture is having fun and sharing some laughs. So I try to bring that element too.
It seems like because part of what happens when you're in a tractor, at harvest especially, there are lots of different pieces of equipment moving around. So you may be running a grain cart while somebody else is running the combine. So they're cutting whatever you need cut in the field. And then they put it in the grain cart. And then that's taken to like an 18-wheeler or something, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's lots of moving parts at harvest because we are a medium to a large farm, and I get a little bit stressed because I am at times the grain cart operator. And when you have 3 or 4 different combines out there, and you're trying to be at lots of places at different times, and trying to manage the flow of harvest, it can get a little crazy at times.
Farmers like to keep those combines moving. They do not want to have to stop a combine because you've got good weather if it's moving. They want to keep it moving while there's good weather, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
That grain cart operator needs to be right on point. And I seem to remember it looked a little bit like baseball signals that people were trying to tell you what to do.
I remember my brother and I, before I went on the grain cart, we went over the hand signals, and I was like, okay, I got this. And then he changes them on me. So I don't know whether to, pull out my auger or go ahead or back up or stop. So we had some learning moments together, but he's so great because they're so patient with me. They would stop the combine to help me unload or load up the grain cart. but now I'm getting better so we can unload on the go. And to me, those are to them, it wasn't big wins, but to me, just not being a very good equipment operator, I were such big wins for me. I celebrated them.
Well, I will tell you, even for me, getting to move people's equipment from one field to another feels like a big accomplishment for me, right? Because like
It
moving
really is.
tractors and stuff, like it's very different than driving my Subaru. And
It is, and it's intimidating, and and you can get in your head and feel like, you're not good enough, just like any other job. We're all beginners at one point or another, and they recognize that, and they have been amazing teachers for me through this transition.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can also imagine occasionally, not like my family would ever do this, but you and your brother might occasionally kind of prank each other a little bit when you're in good
Oh,
moods. Maybe,
absolutely.
maybe not when you're at your most frustrated point.
Absolutely. We actually on the farm every day, like during those busy times, have check-ins to know what each other's stress levels are. So if the stress
Yep.
levels are lower, then we know that we can poke a little harder.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that you've come up with on the farm more recently is you created some snacks, did you?
Yeah, so that was something that I first started outside of university, coming from that marketing background, and my dad being such a great entrepreneur, always looking at, where things are headed, and he thought, more value add. So he proposed to me, creating snack food from barley that's grown right from our farm. And so I took that idea and worked with the Saskatchewan Food Center, which helped me create a product that was both sweet and salty, like little clusters of barley. And yeah, we sold that for about 5 years. And then right when we were transitioning into growing our land base on the farm, we stopped selling it and kind of took a hiatus, but we didn't sell the recipe, and hope to maybe in a few years, once the kids are a little bit older, we can get back into that. But it was such a amazing opportunity because we were selling like right in downtown Vancouver and the urban centers, and here's a farmer selling something that comes right from the farm, and I learned so much, both in the process of what happens to grain that leaves the farm, but also that urban connection to our consumers.
Yeah, I think that's an area where you and I have it very much in common. Trying to bridge these audiences, which as somebody who grew up as a total city girl, it can feel so far away, even
Hmm.
though there are farms right outside of town. That kind of like not knowing what's happening and seeing things and not knowing what they are. I mean, I remember I took my nephew, I've tried to take nieces and nephews all out on farm experiences. But I can remember I was taking my nephew out and he goes, Aunt Janice, I want to ride on the tractor. And I'm like, oh, what? But honey, we're going over to the combine. And he didn't know the different words, right? Like all farm equipment were tractors.
Right.
And he goes, no, I want to go on the big tractor. And he was meaning the combine. But I had gotten so steeped in agriculture, I wasn't really catching what he was saying, right? Like, because his words didn't match up to my meanings of words. I think having those conversations with people is so critical. Just
It really is.
finding a chance to chat.
Yeah, and for us, it was whether it was chatting like at a market where we were selling, or we just had our first farm tour, bringing people to the farm to see the equipment and see the crops, and touch and experience. Like those are where such rich and deep conversations and connections are made. And so grateful for the opportunity of where my paths have taken me.
I saw you talking about this farm tour was happening. So, do you mind telling me a little bit more about it? How did you get that all worked out? Like, how close is your farm to a city? I guess may have an impact, maybe not.
Yeah, we're about the closest city is an hour away, and then the other one is about 2 hours. And because where I live, it's such an amazing tourist location because we have a saltwater lake that has healing properties. So I worked with the local tourism board and developed a package for people when they're out here visiting Manitou Lake to also take the opportunity and come to a farm. So yeah, we had over a dozen people that came and saw a lentil crop, our first cover crop, and then a wheat field, and
I
we
love
showed
it.
them some technology on the farm, our weather station, and then the app that we used to, give us real-time information. And then we had them grind some wheat into making flour, and as well as some lentil flour. And then had them do some testing for canola. And then what we do best at the farm is then we shared a meal. So it was such a great opportunity. And to to see the smiles and the questions that we got, it was so amazing.
Was this like families with and sort of age range was pretty big or pretty consistent?
It was so some families came and then some individuals.
Okay.
And I would say the age range was about 30 to 70. So it really hit everyone. And that's the great thing about the farm tours is it's you can come any age
Yep.
or size. It really doesn't matter, as long as the you're curious about where your food comes from, and there's a farmer on the other end to answer those questions.
Well, I think your family is probably pretty lucky to have you doing those kind of things, because a lot of farms, depending on how many people are dedicated to the farm or what kind of time they have, and in some farm families, maybe it's the spouse is a teacher, and so maybe has some more flexibility in the summer. But to have tours takes time from some employee or something, and it takes planning, because you don't want people to get hurt. And farming's a pretty tough job at times. I mean, safety is something you have to really focus on.
It really is. And this year it's been a little bit crazy, because we were just done seeding and my brother hurt his neck, and he's our sprayer guy. So my husband went right from the drill to the sprayer, and then an employee or a teammate and myself, we were running around trying to cut all the grass, because the cutting all the grass takes 3 days, and then just getting everything cleaned and sweeping everything just to have it presentable. It was, like when you come or when you clean right before company comes before Christmas. That's how we were, but at a farm level. So it does take lots of time, but it's so worth it at the end. Like when we were done and everyone had left, like my husband and I sat down and said we would do that over and over and over again, just to have the opportunity for people to come see and experience the farm.
So how are you working that into a schedule? Is it something that's somewhat open, or do you have like 1 or 2 days a month, or how can you make that like work along with all the other jobs that you have?
Well, for us, you got to put it on the calendar, because if it's on the calendar, then we're dedicated to the time that it takes to prepare and everything. And also for us, I pitched it to my family, and we really needed it to be a family effort, not just a one person show. Just like with the farm, we're all, it's a team effort. And then what we did was we set aside 2 other dates in July, because what better time to bring people out to the field to see that blooming canola and the crops being grown.
Right. People are going to want to take lots of photos.
So many photos. And then we wanted to do it before harvest started, because I don't think we'll be able to do.
Yeah.
I would love to have tours during harvest, but yeah, there's the safety component, and then we're just so busy. Like we need to get the crop off. That's our main livelihood and focus.
Right. And I've been to farms where they charge you a fee, because you are getting lunch and all these kind of things. And then sometimes I think they have sponsors or something that help pay for the fact that, they're able to do that. How have you guys been able to work it out?
Yeah, I am. Well, working with the tourism board has been great. So they've been offering it as a package.
Okay.
So I think they offer it with hotel rooms and then a few other things, and then bring the tour out. So I think the fee is
Nice.
Yeah, it's not a lot, and because we want to entice people to come to the farm, but they also needed to cover the expenses of the meal and the time and stuff like that. So that's how we worked it out.
That sounds awesome.
Mhm.
I love the ag tourism side of things. So now I'm going to have to figure out, maybe not this July because I already have my travel plan, but maybe next year I can come up and see canola.
Yes, please.
One other thing that I knew I wanted to talk to you about before I let you go, and that is, you and I met on Twitter. It's probably been like 7, 8, I don't know how long it's been. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah.
But at the time when we met, a lot of people weren't having the conversation around mental health that is now, thank God, finally coming more open. But you've really done a lot of things to to kind of open that conversation in ag. Tell me how you started that and where we are.
Yeah, well, we started that conversation or tried to amplify it because my husband and I have gone through some hard times. Actually, my whole family. My husband is living with anxiety. My brother is living with PTSD and anxiety. My dad is going through cancer, so he is living with anxiety due to, the stress and the side effects of the medication. My sister is living with borderline personality disorder. So my family has been really impacted and we've gone through hard times. And what we've learned through that is that there is hope and that you do matter and you need that support system around you. And when Matt and I were going through our challenges, we didn't know where to go or who to talk to, and we felt, does this make us not good farmers, or could this impact our business if we talk about it? And it was another fellow farmer from Saskatchewan that put out a tweet and said, farm stress is real, suicide is real in farming, and we need to talk about that. So my husband and I thought, well, let's share our journey and let's talk about it to try to open more doors and to help other farmers feel not what we felt. So we put out a video and it was viewed, thousands of times in and outside of agriculture, and the messages we got back from all over the world were it made us realize, like, we were hoping if one person watched, but what it made us realize was we aren't alone. And this is real, and farming is hard, and we need to talk about it. So after that, there was a few of us in Saskatchewan that got together and created the Do More Ag Foundation, and that was back in 2018. And since then, wow, like the industry, we still have lots of work to do, but the conversations now that are happening online and at kitchen tables and at boardroom tables about mental health and knowing the landscape of where our farmers are and what they're going through, and getting that help and those resources and support to our agriculture community has been just nothing that I would ever have imagined and dreamed.
Yeah, I can remember for the longest time I never heard farmers talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many of us are on farms are taught to be rugged, taught to be da 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 da, and sometimes vulnerability can end up really putting you in a bad spot, like you said, and some of those vulnerabilities really can. I like to think mental health is not one of those that would put you in that spot. And to have that conversation out in the open feels so much healthier. And I mean, we even have friends now that have podcasts that mainly focus on mental health and like working through this kind of stuff. It really is kind of a watershed moment that got started. It was impressive what you guys did, kind of, tiptoeing out and going, are we going to do this? Okay, this is going to be something. You feel so vulnerable.
We felt so vulnerable. And like right before we pressed, the record button on that live video, like it was live and we had never really talked about it. Like some of our family didn't even know what we had gone through. And I remember Matt and I sitting down and we were talking about, okay, what are the risks of this? And we thought, like, what would our community, we live in small towns, but what is our community going to think of us? Are we going to be shunned? And then what really hurt was when we thought of, could this impact our rented land? Because we rent about 50% of our land base.
Right.
And to us, we said, this can no longer be, because that's that stigma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what prevents so many of us from getting help that we so deserve and need. If one person watches this and it creates hope, or that they know that there is that help out there, then we did our part. But wow, like the magnitude that has come from every like industry support from all over the world now just makes me very hopeful, and also it's bittersweet. It's like, man, we should have been talking about this years ago, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it, it seems like sports is just beginning to do it, because
Can't do it.
Naomi Osaka finally said, I can't, I'm just, and doing it in a way that's healthy for yourself and your family, so much preferred to like trying to stifle it all in.
Exactly.
Ultimately, it breaks you.
Yeah, and that's what my husband felt. He like no one knew, and he had the weight. He said the weight of the world on his shoulders. And when he shared that, he said it went away. It was therapeutic for him to share. I view him as, I've changed my definition of strength, and he's it. He's to me the one of the strongest people of being so courageous and vulnerable and sharing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I hate to go back to anything else after that. I mean, that's like the perfect end to the podcast. But I realized I didn't really ask you if there is anything else that we ought to talk about before we go.
No, that I think you shared all of my loves, my love of farming, my love of canola and food and people, and just my love of community and agriculture and what this community does for me and the farm and our family. So thank you.
As we sign off, I do want to mention Lesley is the host or co-host of What the Farm podcast, which is a real good conversation with farmers and others in agriculture about sort of what's happening in their world, and touches on this connectivity piece a little differently than Grounded by the Farm, which is it's a neat podcast. It's with Rob Sharkey. I'm not sure I'd recommend people follow Rob as much. He's a little bit like a brother. Everybody likes to pick on Rob. He loves it. He thrives from it. But as people listen to this episode and over the summer, as they're making their dinners, either on the grill or in the kitchen, I hope that you guys will take time to mention to some of your friends, hey, you guys ought to listen to this. Learn a little bit about canola. Did you know it's called canola because the can in canola is Canadian?
Yep.
Those kind of things. Pass it along. We're working with a teacher this summer, and she is doing curriculum for all of our things. So we're going to be having that coming up soon so that we can have this conversation more with schools too. So much going on. I hope people share this. Get in touch with Lesley. We're going to leave all of her handles, her website addresses in the show notes. So get in touch with her and pass this episode along to others. Thanks again, Lesley, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm even on Clubhouse. So feel free to look us up. Also on our website, groundedbythefarm.com. Wherever you want to get in touch, we're trying to be there. Shoot us a message about questions you have about farming and food. I hope you enjoy these episodes enough that you'll share them with friends, whether that's via social media or in a conversation. Love to think some of that is while you're having dinner with friends and family. This is a production of Grounded Communications. Editing is by Two Guys Talking. Thank you.